Hi everybody, welcome to another captivating show of Newcomers to Trailblazers podcast. Here I am, Monisha, your host, and today we have the privilege of interviewing a remarkable individual who embodies the true spirit of dedication and compassion. Please join me in warmly welcoming our esteemed guest, Farid Andish. Before that, let me give you some juice about him. Farid, a dentist by profession but a social worker by passion, has devoted his life to educating and empowering the youth and women of Afghanistan. In the face of constant challenges and skepticism, he fearlessly championed the causes of politics, social activism, human rights, democracy in Kabul and beyond. Through his unwavering determination and numerous projects, Farid earned the trust and respect of the youth, proving that change is possible even in the most adverse circumstances. However, the path he chose was not without its sacrifices. He faced multiple death threats and tragically lost a friend to one such threat, prompting him to make the difficult decision to move to Canada in 2020. 2020, there I said it, amidst the turmoil of the COVID-19 pandemic. Like any new immigrant, Farid encountered numerous challenges upon arriving in Canada. So without further ado, let us welcome Farid to the show and embark on the enlightening journey together. Welcome, Farid.
Thank you, Monisha. Thank you for the invitation for this nice program.
Thank you. So how are you, Farid? How are you doing?
I'm feeling better now.
You're feeling better now? So did you notice the word better now, he says? So what was holding you up before?
Actually, when we passed different things in our home country and came newly in the new culture, new environment. So after sometimes when you face when you see yourself relax, it shows and looks feel better.
So what I'm hearing is you actually feel like your weight on the shoulders have been lifted. Do you feel that way?
Yes, I can say yes.
Okay, so let's dive right into questions. So you are a dentist and have an MD in general medicine. Can you tell us about your journey and how long you practiced dentistry in Kabul?
In March 2010, I graduated from Kabul Medical University, and after the graduation, right away I start practicing as a dentist in my private clinic. And almost for 10 years, I practiced back home in Kabul as a dentist.
10 years, a decade. It feels like 1/3 of my life. That's amazing. In total, I have only 10 years of career experience, man. Now that makes me feel like I have low self-esteem. Listeners, what are you thinking? Moving into the next question. Your transition from dentistry to working with Save the Children and the National Democratic Institute for International Affairs, I would call it a drastic change, right? So could you share the story behind the opposite career shift?
Yeah, thank you for this question. And this is the question that all the time most of the people ask me, that why you change your field. From my desire when I was a student in university and I was involved in different culture and social activities between the university student association, from that time, that situation encouraged me to be involved in the social activities. When I graduated, every day for 3 hours, I practiced dentistry in my private clinic, and full-time I start working with international organizations. In 2010, I started working with Save the Children International Organization as a monitoring and evaluation officer, and then 2013, I moved to National Democratic Institute for International Affairs, and then in 2016, I moved to the United Nations Migration Agency, which is IOM, International Organization for Migration.
That sounds like a resume coming out of heaven. Tell me about it. Wow, that is so inspiring. You also mentioned that during your college, you were a lot into civil and social activism, right? So have you always been involved in civil and social activism? We would love to hear about your projects that you did.
Thank you for this question. Yes, when I was too young, when I graduated from school, from that time I was involved in social activities and I started working as a civil society activist in the society. When I graduated and we entered into the university, we were a team of youth and we decided to be involved in civil society activities. And then we established an association by the name of Kabul Youth Culture Social Organization, and we start directly working with youths in the community, as well as women empowerment and civil society activities for all the people. From that time, I was involved with civil society activities. When we established the association, we established a monthly magazine by the name of Khurush. We start working between the university students. And the side of that, all the time, I was involved with different volunteer activities, which was in the community, for the people, and from the people.
That sounds like right out of a constitution book. Talk about passion, my mate. Hearing your passion and what you are driving every day, that sounds just excellent. Now that you have moved into a different country, you were already in a challenging phase, and then you landed right in the middle of pandemic, 2020, like I mentioned in the introduction. How difficult was it after moving, and how long did it take for you to find your job?
Thank you for the question. Actually, this was one of the tough time. 2-3 challenges happened the same time for me. That's why it was one of the tough time in my life.
Okay.
When I moved to Canada, it was March 16, 2020. And when I arrived here, after 3 or 4 days, full lockdown started. And it was really tough for me. I was not able to be in touch with the society. I was not able to be in touch with even with my lawyer. So that's why it was the tough time for me. When I moved in March 2020, after that time, I start thinking from where I should start. I start searching online courses because the system changed in all over the world, even in Canada too. Everything became changed from in-person to virtual, and I start searching to start online courses, at least to develop a little bit more my language, English language. And then I found an opportunity, which was the course of advocacy for human from VAST, and I started that one for 12 weeks. That one was very helpful for me, and I was involved actually through virtual with the community, with the non-profit organization, because somehow when I moved to Canada, I came with 2 things. One was my knowledge, medical background, and the second one was my experience that I worked for 10 years with non-profit organization. At least I found the way to be connected with non-profit organization. So I started from there. Then I start some other volunteer activities that I will come back to you.
So you mentioned that you took upon a lot of volunteering activities. You connected with your community. You reached out to people, even though it was all virtual. I have a very curious question. You moved from Afghanistan to here, and then I do not know about your financial background, but when you move as an immigrant, I am sure you need to support in some way. How were you able to support that, especially in the middle of a pandemic and you're volunteering? How were you able to support yourself?
When I moved here, I realized with myself the best way to start working is volunteerism. However, back home in Afghanistan, volunteerism is not very famous between the people, and most of the people are not, don't like to start volunteer job. But from the very previous time when I start working with a non-profit organization and civil society organizations, I learned that volunteerism is one of the important and best point in the community, especially here in Canada. And it's the way for the newcomers to find themselves in the society and to be connected with different networks and to find a better opportunity for their future. Regarding to your question, how can I support myself? Actually, in the side of volunteerism job, for a very short term, every day in the evening, 4 hours, I worked in a convenience store too.
Okay.
So myself economic.
Okay. So your first Canadian experience was a convenience store where you had to work and then you had to survive through it. This is the essence of immigrant journey, right? So people come from dentistry and social work, and you're working in convenience store, you're supporting yourself, you're volunteering, you're doing multiple things at the same time, you're reaching out to community, you're asking people. This just sounds sounds so inspiring. And in fact, we also heard even immediately after your move, what specific volunteer roles did you do and how did it impact your life?
When I started the first volunteer job, it was with a non-profit organization and charity organization by the name of Food Rescue Foundation, and I started working with them as a project coordinator, and also they gave this opportunity for me to be involved in their grant team and fundraising, which was the best opportunity for me. Every week, 6 hours, I worked for them as a volunteer, and as well as every week for 2 hours, I was involved in grant and fundraising activities for them. That was the first volunteer job for me. The second volunteer job, there was a big conference organized by Vantage Point. Vantage Point is a foundation work for non-profit organizations in BC, and on that conference, which was for non-profit organization, I was member of the note-taking and reporting team as a volunteer. The conference was for 3 days, and I worked as a volunteer for 5 days with this organization, and we gathered the note, prepared the report, and on that conference, around 55 representatives from all over BC from non-profit organization participated. The third volunteer job, at the same time, I searched to start working as a volunteer with Canadian Red Cross as an emergency response team member. Still, I am their volunteer. However, I'm working full time, but sometimes when there is a need and they call me during the weekend or when I have time, I am helping, assisting, and supporting them and people through that.
He kept saying volunteering. I was like, yeah, volunteering. He did volunteering. Now he says volunteer 1, volunteer 2, volunteer 3, volunteer 4. He is the king of volunteering, listeners. Now that you mentioned about that you have a full-time job, what are your primary responsibilities in your full-time job? And are they aligned with the passion that you have towards social work?
Yes, exactly. It aligns with my background and experience. It is the first job, actually. Let me say something. How can I find this job? It was a meeting, an online meeting. Through that meeting, when the meeting finished, that lady, she was in the lead of an organization. At the end of the meeting, she called me and said that there is a position in this organization. If you want, I will send the link and you can apply for that position. She sent the link and I applied, and they shortlisted me, and very, very difficult interview. I passed 3-4 interview, 1 written test and 3 interview to got this job, because I didn't have Canadian experience, and you know that Canadian experience is a big challenges nowadays for the newcomers when they move here. I told for the interview panel that what is the meaning of Canadian experience? However, I have 10 years experience with international organizations.
That calls for audacity. That is audacity.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, and this position is case manager. I'm working in case management, and I'm supporting and assisting the newcomers from Afghanistan and from the countries that I know their language. And this is related somehow to my experience when I worked with IOM. However, in IOM, I was involved in management, but we had the same project like here, like this job. And I'm very happy. I'm doing 2 things. One, it's a job for me, full-time job, and I benefit from that. And the second thing, I'm helping the people who needs. It's related to my background with civil society activities, and I'm very happy with this position. Let me tell you something about how to find job as with challenges for the newcomers. It was challenging for me too, because it was in the middle of pandemic. When I applied for this position, the same week I applied for 2 other positions. One was for immigrant and refugee, and the second position was an international organization, Nutrition International. And the base of that position was unfortunately in Toronto. And on that time, I didn't decide to move to Toronto, and I select this job, and I start this job with Options Community Services.
Why not Toronto? Why Vancouver?
Because on that time it was middle of COVID. It was not easy to move from one province to other province province, and in the other hand, I was very new in this province, and just I found the way from where should I start. And when I wanted to move to the second province, of course, for the beginning, it was a little bit challenges for me.
You mentioned, and I also mentioned in the introduction, that you are someone who transitioned from dentistry into social work and civic activities. Do you ever miss being a dentist? And if you do miss it, how do you cope with that?
Of course, I want to say, of course, yes, because it's my background. It's my, at the best time of my life, I studied medical and I practiced that one. That's why I told you yes. Especially when I'm going to the dentist myself, when I'm going to the dentist with my clients, when I'm going to the dentist with my friend and family members, I miss dentistry. And how to cope with that? It's in my mind. I will try the best to find a way. If I can pass some 1, 2, 3, 4 steps, I will start maybe in the future again.
Okay, so someone with a passion in social activism is now taking their career in reverse direction. He moved from dentistry to social activism. So in the future, we might see him moving from social activism towards dentistry. Why wouldn't I?
Because these two fields are very dependent to each other. All the time, all the doctors and dentists working with community and people and society, and social activity is also related to that. That's why all the time I'm very happy to have both of them in my hand.
That is amazing, and that's a very different point of view as well. You are serving people nonetheless, irrespective of if it's dentistry or social activism. You are serving people. I never thought of it that way. Now that we have been talking about dentistry, and especially when you go to the dentist, you slightly miss them most. How does medical system in Canada differ from Kabul? Could you share like some advantages and disadvantages that you have noticed?
Thank you. This is one of the very good questions. Of course, I faced with advantage of the system, and also I faced with the challenges in the system. It's totally different. Let me tell you that the base of medical is the same in all over the world. No one can change anatomy and physiology. They're the same.
Absolutely.
But regarding the system, it will be different in all over the world, or country by country, or at least region by region. When I see here, according to the facilities, maybe there's a good facilities here in Canada that we don't have in Afghanistan and in Kabul. Regarding the system, when I see when the people is studying, it's a little bit difficult and different, because in Afghanistan, from the start point when we graduated from the school, there is the entrance exam. We attend the entrance exam, and the high level people are going to the medical school. In here, before going to the medical school, you have to study at least for 4 years to have a Bachelor of Medical Science, and then enter to the medical school. This is the one difference, the start point.
Okay.
The second, when you graduated, it is again different. When you start working as a resident doctor or as a resident dentist, at first you have to pass a test to be in Canadian Dental Association, and then maybe BC Dental Association, and then you have to practice as a resident doctor in a suburb area.
Okay.
And after 2-3 years, when you pass, you have to come back and start working as you want. So this is also a little bit different. In Kabul, when a medical student graduated from medical university, right away he or she can start practicing for themselves. But if he or she want to be a specialist, they pass an entrance exam and go to the hospital to have their specialty. This is the second difference. According to the system, in here I can compare that somehow I can say it has benefits, somehow I can say it doesn't have any benefit. It's taking time. It takes lots of time from the youth generation. But from the system, from the challenges, At first, here there is not enough family doctor. So the family doctor is also it's
Totally agree with you.
It's totally different from my back home. In Afghanistan, there is no family doctor.
Yeah.
That's the same. I know you're from India. You have lots of information about India. I compare medical system of India with Afghanistan and Pakistan, and I have enough information. This is the same. India, Afghanistan, and those regions are the same. The family doctor is a new perspective for me here. This is the different. Finding a family doctor is a challenge here, and it's not easy, especially for the newcomer, especially when you don't know the doctor language. There is no facilities from the government and from the health sector for the newcomer to at least make family doctor. As I told you, it's a big challenges finding a family doctor, and there's limitation of family doctor here, but the recruiting the international doctors when they enter in Canada is another challenges. Now I see and I can say that there are lots of very good specialists came around the world, but there is no chance for them to enter in the system. At least I want to tell you one of the professor who came from Afghanistan, he was the best. He passed all the exams, but there were no spot to start working here. Then he decided to go to the US. And the benefit goes to the US then. These kind of people are a kind of asset for Canada, and government of Canada need to think about this. A specialist is another challenge. When you have any kind of diseases, family doctor is not on that position to take decision for you. They refer you for the specialist, and when you arrive to the specialist, it may take 3 to 4 months, and the patient will be going damage and lose everything. It's long time for 2, 3, 4 months to achieve a specialist. This is another problem. The other challenges is the usage of health facilities or medical examination. When a specialist or a family doctor refer you, for example, for an ultrasound, even if you're a very, very hot pain, it's not easy to, do the ultrasound in 1, 2, or 3 days. It may take 1 week, 2 weeks, or 3 weeks. Which is not good. Even I have some information from the inside of the hospital. One example from the hospital, one of my friends was sick and he was hospitalized in a bed. The cost of the bed was $2,000 per night when they calculate it. But for ultrasound, that patient wait for 2 weeks inside the hospital. Now there is a miscalculation. I think government of Canada need to think about that.
2 weeks to wait for an ultrasound or a couple of months to wait for a specialist. I think I concur as well. I have been fortunate enough to not experience it, but there are so many new immigrants who have a lot of challenges but are not able to access it. And yes, I agree. System wise, there has to be changes made to enable humans, not just immigrants, right? Enable humans to experience the health standard in Canada, because we have excellent health standards, but the standards are not met for everybody because of the availability and the time zones. And thank you so much for highlighting that. Now that we have spoken about some advantages and the disadvantages you have faced in Canada, are you happy living in Canada? If given the chance, would you consider moving back to Kabul and continue to fight for social change?
Yes, I'm very happy that I'm in Canada. Canada is my second home, and I'm very thankful from the government and from the people of the Canada. Let me tell you that Canada is one of the best places for refugee and immigrants. And the second part of the question, yes, Kabul and Afghanistan is my homeland, and that's my first country. Of course, yes, if there is an opportunity for me that I can help those people, that I can do something for those people who needs a lot, of course I will go back and will do something and serve my time for those people too.
That's amazing. Lastly, as an immigrant, what advice would you give to those landing in Canada daily seeking for a fresh start and new opportunities?
Yeah, that's also one of the best questions. Let me tell you that, as I mentioned, that Canada is one of the best place for the newcomers and immigrants. In here, there are lots of opportunities, but it needs passion, but it needs those people to work hard to make themselves ready to use this opportunity effectively. So I want to tell you, for the newcomers, try a lot. The first things when you move a newcomer, if you want to be involved in the society and community, and if you want to have a good network, you have to learn the language of that society and community, which is very important. The second things, as I learned, is volunteerism job. Having the way for yourself in the society and make a good network and to use the best opportunities for yourself. The third one is you have to be patient. When you move from one environment to the second, when you move from one home to the second, it will be not easy to make everything for yourself simple in a short term. And the fourth one, I want to tell for all the new immigrants, especially the new generation, they have to study something for their bright future.
And Farid especially says, study something that is relevant to you, study something that you're passionate about, study something that excites you, study something that keeps you out of the crowd, and so many other things. Do what you are willing to do and be who you are in the country that is welcoming you. Thank you so much, Farid.
Thank you so much, Monisha.
Thank you for being our guest on our podcast, Newcomers to Trailblazers. Your trailblazing spirit is truly inspiring, and we are thrilled to have you here. We had an incredible time with you as you shared your journey and valuable tips. To our listeners, thank you for tuning in. If you haven't subscribed yet, we encourage you to do so. We release episodes bi-weekly and can be found on Google Podcast, Apple Podcast, and Spotify. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram and LinkedIn for new and more exciting updates. Take care and ciao. Bye-bye.